And now let's take a little diversion. Escape from the lush greenery of the Midwest and its mound building peoples. West to the mountain states. We find ourselves outside of Thermopolis, Wyoming, looking at petroglyphs. What's so amazing about humanity is the fact that it's been everywhere. It's already been everywhere, but long before we had our perverted desire to stick a flag in everything and everywhere, long before all that, people had already been to all these places. There's not a mountain that we haven't conquered that someone hasn't been to before, an ocean that someone hasn't already crossed, and they did it pretty much in their bare feet and with wooden spears with stone tips. And now here in this very unforgiving landscape, people have been coming for 10,000 years and carving art into its walls.
What is a Dinwoody petroglyph? Well, they are a certain style of petroglyph we only see prevalent in the area we now know as Wyoming. It is a certain style of petroglyph that is chiseled with a tool, kind of like a peg and awl, a hammer pounding a small cylindrical stone so as to chip out small circular chunks off the surface of a stone wall, kind of like the pen and ink method of stippling. Oftentimes, they would also be painted over. They would paint over the stippling. Compared to other styles of petroglyphs of the mountain states in the Southwest, this is a far more sophisticated method of crafting and accounts for why they have stayed so well preserved. These Dinwoody folks were essentially the master craftspeople of the petroglyph world. Dinwoody petroglyphs are divided into 4 categories, types 1 through 4, with type 1 being the oldest and type 4 being the youngest. Dating across these types is varied, but type 1 could be as old as 10,000 years old, and type 4 at 1,000 years. And over time and across types, what we see is the images first being solely of the animals they hunted, with the exception of the bison for some reason, which they didn't draw at all, and with later styles adding humans in symbology, and then even later styles adding quite abstract symbology and depictions of what must be spirits or deities. This is a chart in stone of the development of abstract thought in the human mind. First, the only focus was the animals upon which they depended for survival. And then over time and over a period where getting resources must have been getting easier and easier and more specialized and more free time was being had to pursue other interesting concepts, ideas of the spirit and human beings' place in the world started to become just as important to them, if not more important than those animals they hunted. If my life were charted in petroglyphs, it would just be boobs. My earliest drawings were of boobs, and all I draw today are boobs. They account for the deepest extent of my shallow thinking and hopefully will entrance and enchant our future alien archaeologists of the next millennia.
And now we know very, very little of what this art means and who made it, because very, very little research has been done into the people who inhabited the Americas before white people arrived. Now, admittedly, it's also extremely hard to decipher anything that's made on rock by a culture that's long, long gone. But it does make me think of a recent stop I made in South Dakota on the way out here, where I learned about the Lakota winter count, where they use symbology at the end of each year to note the passing of a year and the history of a year. And basically, at the end of each year, I heard a rattlesnake. At the end of each year, their calendar keeper would make one symbol to sum up that whole year, that whole community's experience of the year. Maybe it was a symbol of a star to denote a comet passing by, or a horse because it was a good year for horses, or maybe the passing of an important individual. But it was one image summing up a community. It was not a personal image, it was a community image. Now, our images are for our community, for ourselves. We draw pictures and put them up on Instagram for a like, or maybe, if we're lucky, to sell. But really, they're meaningless beyond our own imagination. And certainly, these images were representative of the communities that lived here So that meant the community would come here, return here, and obviously did, because some of these petroglyphs are as old as 10,000 years old, and some are only a few hundred years old. So obviously they came here over and over again to look at these images, to reflect and learn from their history, which is something we have forgotten how to do, because unlike them, we don't have something called curiosity that's dead within us. But some kind of curiosity kept them braving this inhospitable landscape. I mean, imagine it. You're using stone-pointed spears, wooden staffs, you're fighting against nature to survive. Yet it was important to come here, to this place, this dry, hot as hell, dusty place where barely anything grows, year after year for 10,000 years, and write down messages that we don't know how to decipher. We see representations of typical creatures of the landscape: elk, antelope, rabbits, turtles, bears, and strange representations of human beings.